Whatever it might be. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to address something Bob said at the very beginning, which actually was not about philanthropy, but Bob, you said there's money to be made. That was one of the things you said at the beginning, and I know you, and we fished together today, so I've talked with you too much today, and I've heard too much of you all today. This is a question. This is really a question for the room. There are people here who manage money and are always looking for investment opportunities. Is there money to be made here? And instead of harvesting philanthropy for innovation, I mean, the private market is super powerful when there's a profit motive. So does anybody see a profit motive to get involved in the types of things these guys are talking about?
Well, I can answer partly this question. I'm the chairman of a company, amongst several, that is developing a molecule from polyps in the ocean. They're not coral polyps. They grow on kelp in very, very special circumstances, the proper depth, the proper light, the proper temperature.
What do they do?
These polyps harbor bacteria, would you believe, in their cavity. And these bacteria produce a substance which we call bryostatin. It's known, and the NCI got really interested in bryostatin.
You mean the National Cancer Institute?
National Cancer Institute.
Okay.
Back in 2002. And they started extracting this stuff, but it was so rare that the price was out of the moon. It was $1.5 million per gram of pure bryostatin.
Jeez.
Okay. But they went ahead on a $400 million exploration of this stuff, and they showed that it killed cancer cells as a chemotherapy. And then they abandoned it after 1,500 patients were treated with bryostatin, with okay results and very low toxicity, but it couldn't be harvested. It would damage the oceans to harvest this molecule. So they made a decision to put it on the shelf. 10 years later, maybe a little bit more, one scientist said, they were using it at a very high dose to kill the cells. What if you used it at a low dose? And what they found is that they could make cancer cells more immunogenic with low doses. Not kill them, but make a cancer cell much more visible to the immune system.
So something else could kill it.
So the immune drugs that are now happening, like CAR T cells and monoclonal antibodies, and all these things that have to recognize a tumor, because the tumor has little flags all over it, and they see the flags and attack. What was happening is that many of the tumor cells were saying, I'm being attacked, I'm going to take my flags away and internalize them. So now the tumor cells are invisible to the immune system. This drug was turning that around, is making the tumor cell send out the flags again. And so now the drugs are working again, whereas they before coming into resistance. So the company I'm working with is about to enter new studies at the NCI, resupplying the drug, because what happened was a professor at Stanford, who I know, was a genius medicinal chemist, made a synthesis of bryostatin.
Bingo. That's it. You got it.
Okay, and a very complicated synthesis. You can't get a patent on a natural product. It's disallowed by the patent office. What he did was get a patent on how to make that natural product in a way that made it economic. And now we're exploiting that and about to enter studies, but we've already proved in animals that it works.
So that's a solution from the ocean, but not to a climate change problem. Is that right?
No, it's not. No,
Okay.
it's not. But
It's a solution from the ocean, is your point.
look, I'm going to say something controversial.
Go for it.
The Earth is a unitary body. It's a single body. And we have influence of the climate that could be astrophysical, we know that, and could be anthropogenic, which are human effects, pollution,
8 billion people.
various things that we do. However, we are engaged in such a concentrated effort against the climate, whereas the major polluters the Chinese people, the Indian people, are almost paying it no mind. What do we do from an economic and political and sociological point of view to engage the major polluters in the same effort? Because without that, we're fighting upstream. We're fighting a torrent.
Has anyone in here, you're not allowed. Has anyone in here heard of Bjorn Lumber?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Danish guy.
Yeah. One of your long-lost second cousins, Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace. John Clarice, I think, Nobel Prize winner for physics in 2022. All of these people are part of the science community that do question not the fact that climate change is happening, because it is, you can't question it, but what can be done about it, and what is the relative contribution of human activity to that, and the amount of money that is spent on that human activity to do something about the forcing functions of climate change, and would the return on investment to the quality of life in developing countries around the world actually be better, much higher, if those funds were used for other purposes. That's part of questioning science, always questioning science. Climate change is real, nothing you can say about that. But there are questions about the relative degree to which humans can actually do something about it versus using those funds to do something else with it. And it's a debate a discussion I should say, not a debate, that really should happen more. And it's an economic discussion. What's the return on investment of all of that?
Of course, the return on investment is really low if we lose the basic ability of the planet to support human life. The planet will go on.
But there are some questions in the
There are
science
lots of
community
questions.
about
Of course.
what is the end point of this?
There's always going to be questions, but at the end of the day, we see what's going on, and we see what the contribution is. And my own personal opinion is, it's okay to question, but it's not okay to wait. Because we've waited now for 30 or 40 years, and the options we have now are a lot less than the ones we had 30, 40, 50 years ago.
But
And
if
they're
I could
getting more expensive.
just give you three data points. Hurricanes. Hurricanes were supposed to go up and get worse, right? Because of climate change. Hurricanes have actually decreased since 1980. Look at the trend line. You guys know. Okay.
That's true, but not
Polar
in the
bears,
Atlantic Basin.
polar bears,
Not true.
okay? Charismatic megafauna, everybody loves them. They're all going to hell in a handbasket because of climate change. Polar bear populations are at the highest level they've been now for the last 50 years. Okay, forest fires. Forest fires since 2000 have actually gone down around the world. So all of the data is not necessarily cause and effect with climate change. Climate change is very real, but again, I think there's some legitimate questions to be asked about
What
that.
you're saying is climate change is real. The trends on a secular basis can be detected, right? But the inferences can be questioned.
Yes.
So the human intellect applied to these trends, can be questioned and should be questioned.
And there's no questions humans are contributing to this, no questions.
So I have a friend who's a climatologist, astrophysical climatologist in London, and he made the very simple statement. He said, like the Danish man, I forgot his name, that humans have adapted to climate change all through history. I mean, even the humanoid migrations from anthropoid times up the Rift Valley of South Africa.
Talking about my history.
Yeah. So they moved up the Rift Valley when the Sahara was a swamp at one time. It was
Not during human history.
but humanoid history 2.5 million years before Homo sapiens. So they start moving up and they go to deltas, and that's where human evolution, as Homo sapiens really came about, was in the deltas of the world. So we adapt. The Dutch built dikes in 1600. The Dutch built dikes and allowed themselves to live in the face of oceanic inundation. We can do things that are protective of us from a scientific point of
Science
view.
and technology.
And that should be part of the debate. Getting back to the other things, I mean, the economists, the politicians, and everything else, we desperately need to get the population centers of the world, the Chinese, the Indians, et cetera, to come into the same psychological set that we are in as an emergency, to control climate, anthropogenic change.
So John, since you put the economists on the spot, thank you. We promised, because we have divers who dive tomorrow, we have breakfast at 7, we've had long days, and we can talk about economics tomorrow. And right now, it's 9 o'clock, and I promised people that at 9 o'clock we would more or less stop, although anybody wants to continue on their own. Informally, please do. So I think we're going to say, let's...
May I make one more comment?
Of course.
Okay, on hurricanes, my nickname is Hurricane Bob, okay? So it's true what Michael said about hurricanes around the world haven't increased in number. But in the Atlantic Basin, since 1960, the number of Category 4 hurricanes has doubled. The number of Category 5 hurricanes has doubled. Since 2017, the United States has been hit by 6 Category 4 or 5 hurricanes. The sea is so much warmer than it's ever been in recorded history. It's fueling these super hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin, and those are the ones that affect us. And the number of billion-dollar losses in the United States, in our continental United States, it was 100 days between billion-dollar losses in 1980. Adjusted for inflation, that number has gone down to 15, and we had one yesterday. So what I'm saying to you is, this part of the world is, and not just this part, but many other parts, are seeing a rapid rise in extreme weather events that are driven by a changing climate. And that's just a fact. That's not a prediction. That's a fact. And I think it's great that we question everything that we believe in and keep doing that. That's what scientists do. But the time to question from a probabilistic standpoint, we have to now move to solve and adapt and change. Because if we don't, the cost of waiting is going to far outweigh, and we talk about economic costs, what's coming in the next 50 years if we don't get on with this is going to make what we've just suffered in the last few years look meek, in my opinion. So I want to say that very forcefully.
On that pleasant note,
Yeah.
why don't we thank everybody?
Thank you.
We will resume at breakfast and tomorrow. As George Burns used to say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Grace.